We understand deeply the concerns of residents and want to assure them that their health and well-being are our first priority.
14 hours after it was first announced, Mayor Brandon Scott and DPW addressing the contaminated water in West Baltimore. What we learned from this late-night news conference.
Just trying to wrap our head around it. It's been tough.
Heartbreak at Mervo High School after a student was shot at dismissal. How his high school football coach says the school is trying to move forward. And as the school year gets underway, teachers across the state are facing an uphill battle. Project Baltimore shows the staggering pandemic learning loss we have yet to recover from.
And heavy rain potential overnight with flood watches issued. We're on weather alert. I'm going to break it down hour by hour in my Weather Authority forecast.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
Good evening, I'm Kai Jackson.
And I'm Mackenzie Frost. Mary Bubala has the night off. Our top story tonight, a 13-year-old is injured after a shooting in East Baltimore, a violent start to the fall season.
And it comes on the heels of a particularly violent summer in the city. It started with the deadliest June Baltimore's seen in a generation and ended with the deadly shooting of a Mervo High School student on school grounds Friday.
Tonight, we're hearing from the victim's football coach in an exclusive interview with Fox 45 News.
No one deserves what he got and how things happened on Friday afternoon.
We have live team coverage of the violence tonight.
Keith Daniels spoke with that coach today. And Keith, what did he tell you?
Well, Mackenzie, we talked to head football coach Patrick Nixon, and as you can imagine, he and many others at the school are shaken by what happened. In fact, the coach told me tonight that he saw his young player just moments after that deadly gunfire.
Somber times at Mervo High School with the shooting death of a student. Someone shot and killed 17-year-old Jeremiah Brogdon, a football player, gunned down Friday evening, less than an hour before game time at the school.
You know, good kid, comes from a good family, and definitely an outstanding athlete.
The team's head coach, Patrick Nixon, talking now about the school community's tragic loss and the comfort that comes from a coach to his players.
I mean, we've really been focusing a lot on sticking together. We've been focusing a lot on praying for his family, Jeremiah's family. We've been talking about the importance of just how precious life is.
Investigators say there was an argument after school on a parking lot, then gunfire. Police arrested another teenager who they say attended a different school. Another incident involving juveniles, the victim and suspect.
So this is definitely another example of senseless violence.
The shooting happened in the Northeastern District, where according to police, there have been 36 homicides so far this year. In 2021, that district saw 45 homicides, with 18 juvenile homicide victims across Baltimore last year. Of the arrests made, 10 were juvenile suspects. Crimes with youth fueling the unrelenting violence across the city. Dahlia Attar,
are we properly rehabilitating our children?
A state delegate and former prosecutor in the Juvenile Detention Center, on record with a disturbing observation.
Where we had juveniles that would start off with a minor crime, and once they're in the system, they'd come back for something else that's even worse and worse. And then, unfortunately, many of these juveniles end up becoming adults and committing crimes as well.
Now a coach coping with the crime at Mervo.
Just trying to wrap our head around it. It's been tough.
Well, players won't suit up for practice tomorrow. The coach says that he's meeting with his team and their families to determine when they will return to the field after this traumatic incident. We're live tonight. Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
Keith, thank you. Mervo High School has announced there will be a revised schedule to help transition students back into class after Friday's tragedy. Staff will return at the normal time tomorrow. Students are invited to lunch at 11 a.m. Counseling will also be available tomorrow afternoon. Each grade will return with staggered start times Wednesday.
Youth violence has been an all too common theme this year in Baltimore. On Memorial Day weekend, police say a 15-year-old shot 3 people at the Inner Harbor, killing a 17-year-old. A 15-year-old squeegee kid faces murder charges in connection with a deadly shooting at a busy Inner Harbor intersection. That happened in July. Then in August, a 15-year-old girl shot dead inside her home. Police believe a 9-year-old pulled the trigger, but he's too young to face any criminal charges. And tonight, a 13-year-old boy shot multiple times in East Baltimore. Let's bring in Fox 45's Jeff Abel. Jeff, the mayor made an emphasis on limiting crime this summer, but we have hit Labor Day seemingly without much progress.
As you very well know, there have been plenty of demands and plans this summer, but none of it could seem to stop the bullets from flying.
At Madison and Port Streets tonight, neighbors came running when the bullets started flying. Police say a 13-year-old boy was shot in the arm and leg and is expected to survive. It's the latest round of violence in what's proven to be one long summer of discontent.
People are calling our offices crying out, this city needs some help.
At the start of the summer, city council members feared an unusually violent season and called on the mayor and police department for a plan to fight it.
We are specifically asking for more resources.
In June, the police department produced a summer crime plan, but by the end of the month, 39 people had lost their lives, proving to be the deadliest month in this city's history. The first week of July, the city's top brass rolled out another crime-fighting strategy, this one aimed at preventing crime on the 4th of July.
We have a robust deployment strategy in downtown every night this week through the 4th of July, and we have a robust deployment strategy everywhere across the city.
But by the end of the holiday, 3 people were shot dead, 9 others were injured, including a 14-year-old boy.
Baltimore is on track to have the highest total and the highest rate of homicide in its history, even though the city has shrunk significantly.
In August, 26 people lost their lives, which was 4 fewer homicides than the same month last year. On the radio, the mayor vowed to stay the course.
You know, I am not satisfied with where we are. I'm not satisfied even though for the month of August, we had less people killed in the month of August than we did last year. Still far too many for me.
From the beginning, the mayor has blamed the city's media.
I think that your station in particular has to understand that this is not a hashtag.
And the city's residents.
Where's the personal responsibility? When are we going to also call on people to check on what's going on with their young people, to make sure that they know what their young people are into?
But there's been little blame aimed at the city's crime plan.
Mayor Scott is blaming everybody but himself for what has failed. The Baltimore crime plan that he's put forward has not reduced violence. Violence is up in the city of Baltimore. There are more dead Baltimoreans this year than any prior year. So Mayor Scott can't say something's working when in fact it's not, without being laughed out of town.
By the end of the year, experts predict this city's homicide rate will make history. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
And that brings us to our question of the day. Do you think Mayor Brandon Scott is sending the right message to criminals in the city? So far, 98% of voters say no. You can weigh in by heading to foxbaltimore.com/vote.
We're learning more about the boil water advisory in place for much of West Baltimore. Mayor Brandon Scott, also with the DPW director and the head of the city's health department, provided an update about an hour ago.
At this time, we do not know the source of the contamination, but I can assure you that we are working actively to determine the exact extent of the issue, identify the source, and resume the delivery of clean water to our residents in the impacted area.
Now, this is what we learned from that update. The Department of Public Works found the water was contaminated with E. coli during a routine test. The mayor says the department got the first results Saturday. They were confirmed yesterday, and the public was told today. However, an affected fire union says they were told about the contamination yesterday. West Baltimore is the only area under a boil water advisory, but nearby jurisdictions can boil water out of an abundance of caution as well. Now, you can find a map of those areas on our website, foxbaltimore.com. DPW will distribute fresh bottled water throughout the night. More distribution sites will be set up tomorrow. Specifics about where those will be announced later. Now, the source of the water contamination at this time is not clear, but the Department of Public Works is not says it is not from its wastewater treatment plants. DPW says the impacted areas are being flushed right now and water assessments are underway. Health officials say that you should boil water for at least 1 minute to get rid of any stored water that you have at your home. Now, we have heard from several frustrated residents who say DPW needs to do better.
And that 1 gallon of water is not going to cut it for people in the household. So 1 gallon of water is not going to work. Let's do right by the people that serve and pay taxes in the community, and the seniors and the young people.
Well, DPW first notified the public in a tweet early this morning. It said it would provide frequent updates, but we didn't hear from them for another 8 hours. Health leaders say it is safe to wash clothes and shower if you live in the area, but if you've consumed any water, you should watch out for symptoms.
And common E. coli symptoms include stomach cramps, vomiting, diarrhea, or a fever. These usually pop up within 2 to 4 days. If you feel you have any of those symptoms and you may have been exposed, reach out to your doctor for treatment.
In response to the contaminated water, Baltimore City Schools says that it will be preparing meals off-site at the 6 schools seen on your screen. Hand sanitizer and bottled water will be available for staff and students at the schools. According to the City Schools website, these precautions will be in place until the issue is resolved.
Now, several Baltimore residents and city leaders voicing their concerns over the contaminated water, some pointing to illness earlier this summer. Becca says she tested positive for E. coli, but isn't sure where she got it. She lives in Northeast Baltimore. Angela in Catonsville says she also had E. coli recently. She gets her water from the city. Dhruv Vignaraja says the crisis demands urgency. He's asking for city officials to, quote, step up. Sherry Lynn says she's experiencing a water crisis similar to what we've seen in Jackson, Mississippi, citing what she calls decades of neglect from city schools.
Well, we want to know what you think. Are city leaders doing enough to hold DPW accountable for its mistakes? So far, 100% of voters say no. You can join the conversation by going to foxbaltimore.com/vote and click on the Pulse tab.
Coming up on Fox 45 News at 10, Prince George's County sees its deadliest August in county history. Why police are pointing to juveniles as the driving force behind the crime spike. And major concerns for student safety in Anne Arundel County after new video shows students almost getting hit by a car. Why there was not a crossing guard at that intersection.
A few showers, maybe a thunderstorm tonight, and it looks like eventually drier air comes our way. I'll let you know when less humidity is here in my Weather Authority forecast.
Maryland is facing a teacher shortage, and the teachers we do have face an uphill battle. What the latest state test scores reveal in tonight's Project Baltimore report. 1 week into the school year, hundreds of teaching positions remain unfilled. And those teachers who are in the classroom, they're facing an uphill battle.
That's right. As Project Baltimore's Chris Papps explains, the latest state test scores show staggering learning loss that we have yet to recover from.
It was a decision every school system had to face back in 2021.
There are groups of young people who desperately need support they can only receive in person.
When to reopen classrooms following the COVID shutdowns.
Setting arbitrary dates, making threats, holding press conferences is not the way that we're going to get to in-person learning.
The question sparked heated debates month after month over what was best for our kids, health and safety versus potential learning loss.
What kind of future are we creating for our children?
We don't want anyone to be forced back into buildings before it's safe.
It's been more than a year since every school system in Maryland returned to in-person learning. By spring 2022, the state had resumed normal standardized testing, and now we're seeing the results.
These are all abysmal numbers.
Kathy Schlega is a state delegate and former teacher.
The length of time that the Maryland public schools were shuttered was a problem.
This past spring, Maryland students were tested in math, English, and science as part of MCAP, the Maryland Comprehensive Assessment Program. Math and English results will not be released until early 2023. The state's saying it needs more time to set the standards for scoring. But we can see how students did in science, a subject that has become increasingly important through STEM initiatives. And across the state, numbers are down. In 5th grade, 70% of students tested did not score proficient. That means only 30% did, a slight drop from 2018, before the pandemic hit. When you look at individual school systems, Howard, Anne Arundel, Carroll, Hartford, and Baltimore counties all saw a drop in science scores. But Baltimore City, despite a major decrease in attendance during the pandemic, was the only district in our area to improve, with 8.7% of 5th graders testing proficient in science. Even with the improvement from previous years, Baltimore City still had, by far, the lowest scores in the state.
Very sad and heartbreaking that more than 90% of those students are not proficient in science. We really do have a crisis before us with education in Baltimore City Public Schools.
8th grade science scores showed similar results. Statewide, 35% of students scored proficient, down from 2018. And again, Baltimore City had the lowest scores in the state, but was also the only district in our area to see an improvement, with 12% of 8th graders proficient in science.
For me, after we take this spring's test, that's that new baseline for me.
Maryland State Superintendent Mohammed Chaudhry at a recent school board meeting downplayed the results, saying spring 2022 scores should not be the new baseline because the last school year was largely impacted by COVID.
We had a horrible Omicron December and January. We still had quarantines. We still had masking and other things. The hope this year is some back to that feeling of normalcy.
We have a real problem here in Maryland.
But Schlega says these science results should not be overlooked. If about 70% of 5th and 8th graders throughout all of Maryland are not proficient in science, Schlega says we need to reassess what we're doing in the classroom.
I'm sure that the educational bureaucrats in Annapolis will say this is why we need more money in public education. But we know that just putting money into a program is not going to make a change. We need to make sure that it is a quality program and that students' educational needs are being met.
I'm Chris Papst, and this is Project Baltimore.
Breaking news tonight in Ocean City. Police looking for at least 4 men in connection with the shooting just off the boardwalk. Police say the shooting happened near North Division Street after a brief fight. Officers releasing surveillance footage showing who they say are 4 suspects. This was taken just after 2:30 this morning during the busy Labor Day weekend. Anyone with information is asked to call Ocean City Police.
We're on weather alert right now because of the potential for flooding. This is a live look over the Inner Harbor showing wet roads, and our area has seen some rain over the past few hours. Now remember, if you do see that flood water, you should avoid it. As they say, turn around, don't drown.
Turn around, don't drown. That's right.
Yeah.
Let's bring in Chief Meteorologist Jonathan Myers for a look at when we could see this flooding and where it could take place.
You bet. A couple of scattered showers thus far, but it looks like we could potentially see 2 to 3, maybe 5 inches of rain locally by early tomorrow morning. So let's go ahead and take a look at what's going on outside right now. Now, this is brand new. We have a flood watch. It's in effect for the entire area. That's going to start at 4 a.m. early tomorrow morning. The timing not great as you're heading back to work on our Tuesday morning, all the way through about midday, actually just after midday, about 2 p.m. on our Tuesday afternoon. Just a few showers down. You see Westminster to Eldersburg, but there's more that comes in from the south and west. Look at all the yellows and the oranges. Now, not everybody's going to see that 2-3 inches of rain, but some folks will, and that could, again, create all kinds of havoc for the school buses on the roads tomorrow as we all get back into the swing of things after this long Labor Day holiday weekend, and as you are headed back to work as well. 72 at drop-off time and working up to about 80 to maybe 85 tomorrow afternoon with scattered showers and thunderstorms, especially, again, overnight tonight, morning tomorrow. Be ready for those wet conditions for the travel in, and probably all the way through lunchtime tomorrow as well. We're tracking it all on the radar and the future scan. Have some impressive rainfall totals on the way. My Weather Authority forecast.
All right, Jonathan, thank you. Abortion access could soon be much easier if you're in the military, but not without a legal battle. Why a move from the federal government is receiving so much pushback.
Plus, August was a record month for violence in Prince George's County. How leaders are hoping an emphasis on youth crime could help turn the tide.
This August was the deadliest on record in Prince George's County, and now leaders there say a curfew will be in place for minors.
As Brad Bell from our Sinclair sister station in Washington, D.C. explains, the announcement comes on the heels of a particularly violent weekend.
In Bladensburg this morning, children walked through the scene of a murder, past bullet holes in the front of their apartment building and a door inside. Someone was killed here last night, the latest in an unprecedented outburst of violence in Prince George's County. Residents here frightened, disgusted.
What if one of the stray bullets came through my door and hit my kid?
I have kids, teenagers that were in and out last night, so it's definitely scary.
4 people were murdered in Prince George's County over the weekend, 5 others shot and injured, at least 2 of the shootings involving juveniles. The outburst coming after the deadliest August in county history. Today, County Executive Angela Alsobrooks reacting, announcing the county police will begin enforcing an existing juvenile curfew starting this weekend.
Youth under the age of 17 must be at home between the hours of 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. Sunday through Thursday, and 11:59 and 5 a.m. Fridays and Saturdays.
Alsobrooks calling on parents to control their children and for prosecutors and the courts to get tougher on juvenile offenders.
At this point, these kids don't just need a hug, they also need to be held accountable.
County Council President Calvin Hawkins calling out State's Attorney Aisha Braveboy and judges who he says send repeat offenders home.
To some of you judges who are letting these individuals out, you're going to have to deal with this county council because we don't want you presiding over those kind of cases.
State's Attorney Braveboy firing back, saying she's doing all she can.
Trust me, we keep the community and the victims as our #1 priority.
Now, there has been a curfew on the books in Prince George's County for many, many years. It has been used sparingly, sometimes in specific locations to address specific problems, but it hasn't been used county-wide like this since the late 90s. In Upper Marlboro, Brad Bell, Fox 45 News.
Anne Arundel County's bus driver shortage leading to another budding crisis. How a new schedule could be at fault for a crossing guard shortage.
The search continues after the bodies of 9 migrants are found in the Rio Grande River. How a trip to Illinois may be key for Texas's governor to get the crisis under control. Our top story at 10:30 tonight, the issues plaguing schools in Baltimore City and the surrounding areas. In the city, more than 20 schools are finally back on a regular schedule after early dismissals all last week because of the extreme heat and a lack of air conditioning.
In Anne Arundel County, a bus driver shortage left students sitting or standing in the aisles. The county estimates more than 40 routes are still out of service.
And now the system has been forced to switch its schedule, which is in turn leading to a crossing guard shortage. Rebecca Pryor explains the building safety concerns.
Yeah, from packed buses to empty crosswalks, parents and police, they're telling me that the problems start with the new school start times. A new school year with new start times, driving in new concerns for Anne Arundel County parents.
It's very dangerous.
Because start times are no longer staggered. Several busy crosswalks, including this one in front of David Warner's house, left unmanned and unsafe during crucial times for commuters.
I came out to shoot a video to show that there are no crossing guards. But of course, the first video I shot shows two children almost getting hit by a car.
It is definitely a concern to us, the hurdles that we are facing due to the start time changes.
Spokesperson for the Anne Arundel County Police Department, Lieutenant Jacqueline Davis, says with a shifted schedule, the district is currently short about 50 crossing guards.
Historically, one crossing guard could do 1, 2, 3, even 4 crossings in their shift. They would hop from one to another to another. Now that they've changed the start times, those guards can only work 1 or 2 crossings.
Beyond cutting hours, the lack of work also means most crossing guards no longer qualify for county benefits.
So we're losing crossing guards that way. They're resigning because they need to get a different job.
Similar issues also being found on AACPS school buses. Staffing shortages compounded with the new start times, leading to overcrowding. Kids with nowhere to sit seen standing in the aisles and sitting on laps.
Even just now gave me the chills. I mean, my blood pressure really just dropped.
Transportation didn't want it. The school bus drivers didn't want it. Nobody.
Considering the mounting concerns, Fox 45 reaching out to the district, asking if they're standing by the new start times. We did not hear back.
We need to have something more safe here.
In the meantime, more than a dozen educators and parents have officially filed an appeal against these new start times. The district has until next Wednesday to respond. Reporting in Baltimore, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
From crossing guards to school redistricting, Howard County Public Schools will hold its first public hearing on new proposed school district maps Wednesday. The school system superintendent released the new redistricting plan last week. Wednesday's public hearing starts at 7 o'clock. You can find more information on our website, foxbaltimore.com.
And Fox 45 News is your back-to-school headquarters, and we're committed to investigating any problems your kids run into this year, from teacher shortages to a lack of bus drivers. Call our news tip line. That's right there on your screen. You can also send us an email or chime in with your concerns. And 5 counties are set to begin the school year tomorrow, including Carroll County and Harford County in our area. For a complete list of each school system start date as well as the schedule for breaks, head on over to our website, foxbaltimore.com.
Stunning video out of Federal Hill this afternoon. 2 rooftops catch fire along Charles Street just before 2 o'clock. The fire department says the blaze started on one deck before moving across to the other home. That's in clouds of huge black smoke billowing into the sky, as you see. In fact, it could be seen from Camden Yards. The flames were brought under control within an hour. At least one person was displaced from their home, but the fire department says they aren't reporting any injuries at this hour. The cause is under investigation.
And the second week at the Maryland State Fair saw plenty of activity, including a report of fights breaking out. The fair tells Fox 45 News there were some fights, but nothing too serious.
For the most part, it was mostly kids, and they were fighting. The police got there and just broke them up. As far as I know, there was nobody hurt.
Fox 45 News reached out to Baltimore County Police to find out if there were any arrests at the fair Saturday night. Police did confirm, quote, several disturbances and an assault, but would not confirm whether or not any arrests were made. Police say the investigation into the assault is ongoing.
Well, Baltimore City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby will appear in court this week, and her federal trial is exactly 2 weeks away. Mosby is facing 2 perjury charges and 2 charges of making a false statement on a loan application. All charges stem from her purchase of 2 homes in Florida. The first pretrial status conference will take place on Wednesday afternoon. Her final pretrial status conference will happen a week after that. Her perjury trial, or jury trial, I should say, will begin Monday, September 19th. In Fox 45 News, we'll have complete coverage of the trial. You can follow along on air and also on our website, foxbaltimore.com.
Former President Donald Trump's request to appoint a special master in the FBI search of Mar-a-Lago has been granted. The private attorney will act as a third party to review classified documents seized at the former president's Florida home last month. The former president's lawyers say they do not trust the Department of Justice.
This case is so politically charged that they don't want, that Donald Trump's team doesn't want the Department of Justice to say, yep, we can use this, we can't use that.
The DOJ has argued that's not necessary because an internal team has already reviewed the material. Many expect federal prosecutors to appeal the decision.
After a deadly week at the U.S.-Mexico border, officials are asking migrants to avoid illegal crossings to prevent future deaths. National correspondent Kayla Gaskins has the story.
A dangerous stretch of the Rio Grande River claiming the lives of at least 9 migrants attempting to cross into the United States illegally. Dozens more successfully pulled from the dangerous river currents. The amount of deaths prompting U.S. Customs and Border Patrol to release a statement asking everyone to please avoid crossing illegally. Critics blaming President Biden's policies for the deaths.
The most vulnerable people in the world are going to put themselves in the hands of criminal cartels that come to the greatest country on earth.
The first year of Biden's presidency saw a record 728 migrant deaths at the southern border. Former ICE Director Tom Homan saying death tolls have now reached 1,300, significantly higher than Trump or Obama.
It's not like somebody walks over and that's not how.
Exactly what's happening.
In an effort to get the president to pay attention to the crisis, Texas Governor Greg Abbott continues busing migrants to Washington, D.C., New York City, and most recently, Chicago. The big city mayor's furious with the move, demanding federal assistance, even though they are sanctuary cities that have vowed to protect migrants.
There could be a level of coordination and cooperation, but he chooses to do none of those things and instead tries to send human beings, not cargo, not freight, but human beings across the country to an uncertain destination. He is manufacturing a human crisis, and it makes no sense to me.
With Republicans criticizing the Biden administration for not doing enough, the UN now dubbing the U.S.-Mexico border the deadliest land crossing in the world, with 2022 on track to be the deadliest year on record. In Washington, I'm Kayla Gaskins.
Taking a look at some of your consumer headlines. Home prices are starting to slowly come down, but they're still much higher than last year. Overall, the price index has gone up by about 10% in the first 6 months of 2022. FedEx is out with its holiday schedule for shipping deliveries, including key surcharges. Some fees begin today for additional handling and oversized packages. Peak surcharge periods begin on Halloween. That's October 31st. And the U.S. snack market is seeing growth as Americans choose to snack more instead of eating a meal. Experts estimate that snack market price rose to more than $150 billion this year, up $34 billion since 2017. Inflation has snack prices getting higher, but that doesn't seem to be impacting demand.
The federal government is taking steps to increase abortion access in states where the procedure is banned. The Department of Veterans Affairs will now offer abortions for veterans and their families in cases of rape, incest, or medical emergency. But what happens in states like Texas, where an abortion ban is in place, but the VA still tries to go through with it?
The only way we would find out is if a physician performed an abortion in a VA hospital and was subjected to a state criminal prosecution, and the courts would have to untangle all of the complications that I just quickly threw out here. I would not be surprised, but what someone would bring, probably somebody on behalf of the state of Texas, would bring a lawsuit to try to get a federal judge to block the VA from being able to do that. I think this is another one of the abortion-related questions that are going to have to work its way through the courts. No easy answers, no imminent answers.
The Texas Alliance for Life says that they believe the VA's choice to allow exceptions to abortions is illegal. A statement from Planned Parenthood of San Antonio says anyone in need of an abortion should be able to get one with no questions asked.
And abortion continues to be a protected right in Maryland. This session, the state passed the Abortion Care Access Act. It ensures there are enough healthcare professionals to provide abortion care. Insurance is also legally required to cover abortions. House Speaker Adrian Jones is still looking to have the right to an abortion codified into the state's constitution. Senate President Bill Ferguson did not allow that push to move forward last legislative session.
On this Labor Day, a seismic shift in the workforce, how employees are slowly starting to take some of the power from their bosses.
And the morning rush tomorrow, the first one of the week, in fact, is going to be a wet one, 6 a.m. Showers and storms going to be around, and it looks like that lasts all the way through the end of the commute. In fact, we've got a flood watch and a weather alert day for tomorrow. Going to break everything down for you. Coming up, my Weather Authority forecast.
On this Labor Day, American workers appear to have the upper hand over employers. Unemployment is low and millions of jobs are open. The National Desk's Angela Brown explains how the demand for flex hours is expanding to several industries.
When you think about remote work or flexible hours, you may think of white-collar jobs like an IT or an accountant. But now workers on the assembly line or in warehouses are demanding flexible hours, and in some cases, they're getting it. Amazon launching Family Flex last year. They say to give frontline employees more flexibility, allowing some to create their own schedule with anytime shifts. The Wall Street Journal reporting logistics supplier Jodis said more than 110,000 hours of work have been done using the company's flexible shift program on a phone app called Shift. Career specialist Julie Balke says workers are gaining more control of their lives.
So it gives people options, flexibility, the ability to flex up if they need more hours, and the ability to flex down if they've got something going on at home that they have to manage. So even though it's not as flexible as work from anywhere, it gives people choices and options.
A recent survey from Future Forum tracking more than 10,000 workers found that 94% want to set their own hours, and flexibility ranks second, only to pay in terms of job satisfaction. And Gen Zers place a higher value on work-life balance. Flex Jobs found that 75% of Gen Zers say that workplace flexibility is the #1 employee benefit they are looking for.
So we are moving toward a place where by the year 2030, only 1% of the workforce is going to be boomers. And so you can't run a young workforce that's completely sees the world differently. You can't run them with a boomer mentality. And you can pound your fist on the desk all you want, but it's not going to work.
The fear for companies is that productivity will go down. Experts who are tracking our changing workforce, they recommend that companies do a test run of work flexibility and also compare quarterly financial reports before and after the switch. In Washington, D.C., I'm Angela Brown.
Labor Day weekend is wrapping up, and experts say it's been the biggest Labor Day travel weekend in 3 years. Around 82% of all travelers this weekend went by car. The spike isn't surprising, considering it's the first full travel weekend since the pandemic. The Maryland Transportation Authority says right now is the best time to go home at a time after 10 o'clock in the evening. And here's a live look at the traffic on the western end of the Bay Bridge. Traffic a little lighter than it was earlier today, but we're expecting another congested day tomorrow as people return from their Labor Day weekend trips. All right, now, Jonathan, it looks nice out, depending on where you are. It was raining earlier today. Tell us what we're in store for. I mean, it doesn't really feel like the end of summer. It's still pretty hot and muggy, but, you know, it's September. So.
Yeah, you know, Mackenzie, still on the calendar, we've got a couple of weeks of summer left, all the way through about, you know, the 21st. So we're still going to be warm. We're still going to be humid. And actually, that warmth and humidity adding to the next weather maker, giving us a flood watch. It's in effect for the entire area, except for the central and southern portion of the eastern shore. This now in effect from 4 a.m. early tomorrow morning through 2 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. Notice the rain just starting to build in now from Westminster down to Eldersburg and Randallstown. It's been pretty quiet most of the day, although a few showers this afternoon. But now it's starting to get its act together. And I mentioned earlier that it looked like the later you get, the more chance of rain you're going to have. And here it is now moving in from the south and west. And there's plenty more as we zoom out. You can actually get a really nice picture here of this weather maker that's all the way from Harrisonburg down to Roanoke and Charlotte. There's been all kinds of flooding across portions of the south with this into Georgia and portions of Alabama. That now moving north and east and unfortunately heading toward us. Now, it should be a pretty quick hit of rain. It's only, again, between about 4 a.m. and 2 p.m. tomorrow, but it's just in time for your morning commute as we work on some of the humidity and the warmth from today. Made it up to 87 this afternoon, even with the clouds and even with a couple of those showers. So no surprise that this is kind of a volatile air mass. And here we go with the showers and thunderstorms moving in. There is less humidity on the other side of this latest weather maker, but it's going to take time to get here. Probably by the end of the week, it's going to start feeling better. But until then, again, that flood threat coming for tonight into tomorrow. 77 right now. No rain reported at Baltimore's BWI. Winds are calm. Humidity at 85%. And our dew point, that's a measure of moisture in the air in the 70s. So when you have those dew points in the 70s, the moisture content of the air is very high. So none of these very comfortable temperatures right now in the 70s to right around 80 degrees as we're wrapping up our Labor Day. And it stays warm and muggy all the way out to the west. No signs of any cooler air, at least for now, coming our way. Now, Taking a look out in the tropics, we've got Danielle. That's a Category 1 hurricane. Looks like it could strengthen a little bit before it eventually ends up out in the open Atlantic and should not have any impacts on land. And then there's also Earl, which is a tropical storm that will also move into the open Atlantic, just likely east of Bermuda, and then out and away. And then on top of that, of course, this is now heading towards the peak of hurricane season climatologically, as we like to say, or on average, usually at about September 15th. So now we have a third potential system that we're watching here over the open Atlantic, and that's going to eventually also move off to the west and northwest. That's got a now 60% chance of development. So future scan overnight, there's that heavier rain moving in after about 2-3 a.m., goes through the morning commute on and off. That's where we could get some of our excessive totals by about lunchtime, starting to move east. And that should tamp down on our temperatures a little bit as we only make it up to about 80 degrees for tomorrow. And of course, tomorrow is a weather alert day for that potential flooding and maybe even a couple of more scattered showers and thunderstorms as we head into late tomorrow and into Wednesday, as well as all this kind of moves out. Now, in terms of rain totals, this is through the end of tomorrow. Look at those totals. This is the problem. 2 to 3, maybe 4 inches of rain. So at least some ponding potentially for tomorrow morning, midday, could even have some flooding. So, of course, if you see any of that rain out there that's creating some of those, big puddles, or you don't know the depth of the water ahead of you, turn around, find an alternate route. 71 degrees, rain, patchy fog for tonight. 81, lots of clouds and muggy with the occasional rain and a thunderstorm or two in the morning and midday. That should taper late. Still some residual showers all the way through Wednesday. Beautiful days Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then a chance of a shower or storm as we head towards Sunday and Monday into early next week.
All right, Jonathan, students are trying to heal after the Mervo High School shooting last week. How football coach at the school is hoping to help them. And a critical day for the Orioles' playoff dreams. How the wildcard hopefuls would fare in 2 cracks against Toronto.
The O's start today 2.5 back from the third and final American League wild card with 29 games left. Toronto holds it, which means these 4 with the Blue Jays this week equal 1 full game in wild card chase. But the Birds swept in the doubleheader. Game 1, 7-3. Game 2, 8-4, thanks to Bo Bichette, who busted out a 3-homer career best performance. The O's now 4.5 back from that wild card chase. Week 1 has finally arrived on the practice field for the Ravens, and today's practice marked a first in nearly a year. Left tackle Ronnie Stanley on the field in front of the media eyes and cameras. Stanley has played in only 7 games in the past 2 seasons after multiple ankle surgeries. This is a big step, but it's only a step. His game day status is still very much in the air for the start of the season. The start of week 1 also means the potential beginning of the end for Lamar Jackson long-term discussion talks in 2022. The quarterback wants to wrap it up by week 1. That's now through Sunday. Either way, he is under contract for his 5th year, and the team on the field is not worried about the deal or no deal watch.
Nothing that I'm aware of. It's been football for players and coaches. And that's kind of where we're at. My interactions with Lamar have been all football. And he's been focused and locked in on that 100% from a football standpoint. So that's kind of where we're at. And just really, I don't personally have anything to add that I know of.
Speaking of QBs, the Ravens are preparing for 2, either Zach Wilson or a Joe Flacco reunion. When New York plans to name its Week 1 starter, that's at 11:30 when Sports Unlimited continues.
The city knew a day ago, but residents were only told this morning. The latest on the water contamination in West Baltimore.
One.
Check this out. SpaceX launching its Falcon 9 rocket late last night. The rocket is carrying another round of more than 50 Starlink internet satellites, and it's the 6th launched by SpaceX this month.
The city waited a whole day to let people know their water may be infected with E. coli. The latest on the boil water advisory in West Baltimore. A 13-year-old shot tonight continues a trend of youth violence in Baltimore. We're looking into why so many continue to get hurt despite the mayor's focus on slowing crime. A Fox 45 exclusive speaking with the football coach at Mervo High School. We asked him what it was like to lose a player to a school shooting and how he's trying to help students heal.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News Late Edition.
Right now in the Late Edition, we're on weather alert tonight because of the potential of flooding. Good evening, I'm Kai Jackson. Chief Meteorologist Jonathan Myers joins us with the latest. Jonathan.
This evening, the National Weather Service went ahead and kind of pulled the trigger on a flood watch, in effect, 4 a.m. through 2 p.m. tomorrow. So that's going to be for our Tuesday. So the morning commute could be a little rough here. Already a little bit of rain moving in, especially north and west of Baltimore, but there's more south and west down toward Harrisonburg, as well as Charlottesville and down to Charlotte in the Carolinas. That all moving our way. So bus stop forecast. Some kids, it's the first day of school, 72 degrees. They're going to need umbrellas at drop-off time and keep them around for the entire day, especially through about lunchtime or just shortly thereafter. That's when we could have some of our heaviest rain around here. I'm going to break everything down hour by hour in the future scan in a couple of minutes.
Well, first on Fox tonight, the football coach at Mervo High School is speaking to Fox 45 about his efforts to help students heal. Last week, 17-year-old Jeremiah Brogdon was killed in a shooting outside Mervo High School on Friday. Brogdon was a junior who played on the football team. The suspect in the case is a 17-year-old from a different Baltimore school. Tonight, Keith Daniels spoke with the victim's coach about how he and the students are coping.
Well, we talked to head football coach Patrick Nixon, and as you can imagine, he and many others are shaken by what happened. In fact, the coach told me tonight that he saw his young player just moments after that deadly gunfire. Somber times at Mervo High School with the shooting death of a student. Someone shot and killed 17-year-old Jeremiah Brogdon, a football player, gunned down Friday evening, less than an hour before game time at the school.
Good kid, comes from a good family, and definitely an outstanding athlete.
The team's head coach, Patrick Nixon, talking now about the school community's tragic loss and the comfort that comes from a coach to his players.
I mean, we've really been focusing a lot on sticking together. We've been focusing a lot on praying for his family, Jeremiah's family. We've been talking about the importance of just how precious life is.
Investigators say there was an argument after school on a parking lot, then gunfire. Police arrested another teenager who they say attended a different school. Another incident involving juveniles, the victim and suspect.
So this is definitely another example of senseless violence.
The shooting happened in the Northeastern District, where according to police, there have been 36 homicides so far this year. In 2021, that district saw 45 homicides, with 18 juvenile homicide victims across Baltimore last year. Of the arrests made, 10 were juvenile suspects. Crimes with youth fueling the unrelenting violence across the city. Dahlia Attar,
are we properly rehabilitating our children?
A state delegate and former prosecutor in the Juvenile Detention Center, on record with a disturbing observation.
Where we had juveniles that would start off with a minor crime, and once they're in the system, they'd come back for something else that's even worse and worse. And then, unfortunately, many of these juveniles end up becoming adults and committing crimes as well.
Now a coach coping with the crime at Mervo.
Just trying to wrap our head around it. It's been tough.
Well, players won't suit up tomorrow. The coach says he's meeting with his team and their families to determine when they will return to the field after this traumatic incident. Reporting tonight, Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
Well, today the school announced a recovery week to help students return after this traumatic incident. Staff will return at the normal time tomorrow. Students are invited to lunch starting at 11 a.m. Each grade will return on Wednesday at staggered times.
Now, a Fox 45 News alert in 3, 2, 1.
Breaking tonight, a 13-year-old shot in Baltimore. It happened near East Madison and North Port Street just before 7 o'clock. This is just a block away from a Safe Streets location, but it's not in that location's working zone. Officers arrived at the scene and found a 13-year-old boy who had been shot in his arm and leg. They say the injuries are not life-threatening. He was taken to the hospital for treatment, and anyone with information on the shooting should contact Baltimore Police or Metro Crime Stoppers. There was also Labor Day violence in Ocean City this morning. Just after 2:30 in the morning, police found a 28-year-old man who had been shot near the boardwalk. He was taken to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Police are looking for the men in this security camera video in relation to the shooting. Anyone with information on the shooting is being asked to contact Ocean City Police.
Well, tonight's 13-year-old shooting victim continues a trend of youth violence that's plagued Baltimore this summer. Just before Memorial Day, a Howard County teen was arrested in a deadly triple shooting at the Inner Harbor. A 17-year-old lost his life. A 15-year-old squeegee kid faces murder charges after a deadly shooting at a busy Inner Harbor intersection in July. In August, a 15-year-old girl was shot and killed inside of her home, and police believe a 9-year-old pulled the trigger. Fox 45's Jeff Abel is taking a closer look at how all these incidents took place as the mayor made an emphasis on limiting crime this summer.
Well, as you know, there have been plenty of demands and plenty of plans, but none of them could seem to stop the bullets from flying this summer.
At Madison and Port Streets tonight, neighbors came running when the bullets started flying. Police say a 13-year-old boy was shot in the arm and leg and is expected to survive. It's the latest round of violence in what's proven to be one long summer of discontent.
People are calling our offices crying out, this city needs some help.
At the start of the summer, city council members feared an unusually violent season and called on the mayor and police department for a plan to fight it.
We are specifically asking for more resources.
In June, the police department produced a summer crime plan, but by the end of the month, 39 people had lost their lives, proving to be the deadliest month in this city's history. The first week of July, the city's top brass rolled out another crime-fighting strategy, this one aimed at preventing crime on the 4th of July.
We have a robust deployment strategy everywhere across the city.
But by the end of the holiday, 3 people were shot dead, 9 others were injured, including a 14-year-old boy.
Baltimore is on track to have the highest total and the highest rate of homicide in its history, even though the city has shrunk significantly.
In August, 26 people lost their lives, which was 4 fewer homicides than the same month last year. On the radio, the mayor vowed to stay the course.
You know, I am not satisfied with where we are. I'm not satisfied even though for the month of August, we had less people killed in the month of August than we did last year. Still far too many for me.
From the beginning, the mayor has blamed the city's media.
I think that your station in particular has to understand that this is not a hashtag.
And the city's residents.
Where's the personal responsibility? When are we going to also call on people to check on what's going on with their young people, to make sure that they know what their young people are into?
But there's been little blame aimed at the city's crime plan.
Mayor Scott is blaming everybody but himself for what has failed. The Baltimore crime plan that he's put forward has not reduced violence. Violence is up in the city of Baltimore. There are more dead Baltimoreans this year than any prior year. So Mayor Scott can't say something's working when in fact it's not, without being laughed out of town.
By the end of the year, experts predict this city's homicide rate could very well make history. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
Well, we're learning more about the boil water advisory in place for much of West Baltimore. Mayor Brandon Scott and the Department of Public Works Director and the head of the city's health department provided an update more than an hour ago.
At this time, we do not know the source of the contamination, but I can assure you that we are working actively to determine the exact extent of the issue, identify the source, and resume the delivery of clean water to our residents in the impacted area.
This is what we have learned from that update. The Department of Public Works found the water was contaminated with E. coli during a routine test. The mayor says the department got the results on Saturday. They were confirmed yesterday, and the public was told today. However, an affected fire union says they were told about the contamination yesterday. West Baltimore is the only area under a boil water advisory, but nearby jurisdictions can boil water out of an abundance of caution. You can find a map of those areas on our website, foxbaltimore.com. The Department of Public Works will distribute fresh bottled water around the night. More distribution sites will be set up tomorrow. Specifics about where those sites will be located will be announced later. The source of the contamination is not clear, but DPW says it is not from its wastewater treatment plants. DPW says the impacted areas are being flushed and water assessments are underway. Health officials say you should boil water for at least 1 minute to get rid of any stored water that you have in your home. It is safe to wash clothes and shower if you live in the area, but if you drank any water, you should be mindful of any possible symptoms. DPW first notified the public in a tweet early this morning and said it would provide frequent updates, but we didn't hear from anyone again for another 8 hours. In a tweet tonight, Governor Larry Hogan says the State Department of the Environment is assisting Baltimore in fixing the E. coli contamination, saying emergency management teams spoke with local governments impacted by the situation. Staffing shortages might be making it more dangerous for kids to walk to class. Hearing from parents worried their kids could be in trouble crossing the street.
For a time, it seemed nuclear power was getting phased out, but new signs of a global U-turn. I'm Christine Frizzell with a look at what's behind the change.
Here's a look at today's top trending stories. Number one, a fire in Federal Hill could be seen from Camden Yards. This was the scene at the corner of Charles Street and West Fort Avenue. Two rooftops caught fire. It took firefighters about an hour to get the situation under control. At least one person has been left without a home, but luckily there were no injuries. Number two, staffing shortages plaguing Anne Arundel County schools. A lack of crossing guards is now putting some students in danger, according to parents. With start times no longer staggered, it's harder to ensure all crosswalks are watched during the busy morning hours when students arrive at school.
I came out to shoot a video to show that there are no crossing guards. But of course, the first video I shot shows 2 children almost getting hit by a car.
It is definitely a concern to us, the hurdles that we are facing due to the start time changes.
Well, the spokesperson for the Anne Arundel County Police Department says with the shifted schedule, the system is currently about 50 crossing guards short. More than a dozen educators and parents have officially filed an appeal against the new start times. Well, the world may be turning back to nuclear power. A look into what's driving the return to an energy source most thought they were leaving behind. Looking ahead to tomorrow's headlines, Senators Ben Cardin and Chris Van Hollen are speaking in Baltimore, highlighting what they believe the Inflation Reduction Act will do to help Marylanders. The Baltimore Orioles will continue their series against the Toronto Blue Jays. After today's doubleheader, the O's fell to 4.5 games out of a playoff spot. And thousands of students will have their first day of school tomorrow in this area. Harford and Carroll County schools will welcome back their students.
Well, we are under weather alert for late tonight into tomorrow. It's a flood watch in effect for the entire area except for the middle and lower portion of the eastern shore. As we say, turn around, don't drown. In other words, if you see water covering the route ahead of you, turn around, find an alternate route. You can see some of this rain that's now already beginning to develop around Frederick, Cockeysville, down to Aspen Hill in the D.C. area in Montgomery County. And there's more rain that's down to the south and west of us that will continue to move north and east and likely going to be impacting our morning and midday hours. Of course, that's going to mean problems for this shortened work week's first morning commute after the Labor Day holiday. The humidity has been building today. You can feel it outside. It's kind of sticky. The extra clouds and this latest weather maker, a stalled out front, going to be drifting in. So that means the stormier weather is coming our way. The less humidity or less humid weather, it's just waiting in the wings north and west, but it's going to take some time to get here. 76 right now. It's the area you can wear with a dew point at 70 degrees. That is uncomfortable. It's sticky. Lots of clouds on the Toyota East Inner Harbor Skycam, but not a whole lot of rain yet. Temperatures all in the 70s area wide right now, still near 80 over at Annapolis, and no real signs of cool air, at least for now. But we will start cooling down, at least rain cooled next couple of days, and eventually some drier and more comfortable air will get here. It's going to take a little bit of time, though. Now, out in the tropics, things acting up as we're getting into the peak now of hurricane season. We have number 1, Danielle. That looks like it's going to be holding its own as a hurricane, but moving over the open Atlantic Ocean waters. There's also Earl, which could intensify into a Category 2 hurricane eventually, but that moves directly almost north or even northeast and stays away from any real landmass areas. And then there's also a 60% chance of development over the central Atlantic. That's one we'll have to watch a little more closely to see exactly where that goes, but it's at least a medium chance of becoming a tropical depression in the next 5 days. All right, so around here, occasional rain on and off. There's the heavy stuff after about, say, 4 a.m. That's when our flood watch goes into effect through about 2 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. By about lunch, I think most of this is gone, but the morning commute looking like a real mess. Of course, you want to tune in tomorrow morning. I believe Jasmine Lomax is in for our Justin Chambers, and she'll have the very latest on that. And then occasional rain here and there into tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow evening. We're going to call it a weather alert day on our Tuesday. Residual showers left over Wednesday. Dries out nicely Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Humidity comes back and a chance of some showers as we enter the final weekend of the Maryland State Fair Sunday, and then again also on Monday.
All right, Jonathan, thank you. With gas prices up and renewable energy still not ready to replace oil entirely, world leaders are considering a different source but familiar source of power. Why we may soon see a return to nuclear energy. Russia's war in Ukraine has significantly contributed to the higher cost of oil. Christine Frizzell reports it's causing world leaders to take a new look at a different but familiar form of energy.
When it comes to turning toward alternative forms of energy, experts say solar and wind are good. But but they simply can't keep up with the needs for oil and gas. At a time climate change has forced the world to reckon with the dangers of coal.
Many are interested in climate, many are interested in energy security. So you sort of get people to nuclear for different reasons, but you get them.
Maria Korsnick, who heads the Nuclear Energy Institute, says the pivot is occurring on a global scale. The European Union labeling nuclear energy as a green investment. While about 70% of energy in France is nuclear, Germany has led the way in shutting it down. Until now, with some signs it's considering a U-turn, especially with Russia's Gazprom set to cut supply soon, and much of the world wanting to punish Russia for its war in Ukraine. Here in the United States, a strategic shift as well. The just-passed Inflation Reduction Act is full of benefits for the industry, including tax credits for nuclear power plants and clean energy production. Still, experts say major changes will not be seen for years.
Nuclear power plants cannot build themselves overnight, and you literally cannot finish building it up and put it into use for at least 10 years.
Critics continue to speak out about the dangers of nuclear, with concerns rising right now in Ukraine around violence near Europe's biggest nuclear plant. And the lasting effects of nuclear disasters, like the one at the Fukushima plant in Japan in 2011.
Chernobyl was kind of a long time ago. Fukushima Daiichi was not. Isn't nuclear power also very dangerous?
You look at all the different forms of energy, and I'm a nuclear engineer, and I've been in the nuclear business for over 35 years, and it's actually the safest of all the different ways to mass produce power.
In the debate over global power and who should lead the way, nuclear power is emerging as a force to be reckoned with. In Washington, I'm Christine Frizzau.
He's back 1 year later. The return of Ronnie Stanley to the Ravens practice field. What the left tackle status is for Sunday's opener, you'll find out in Sports Unlimited. Well, Labor Day is coming to an end. Some people in Michigan celebrated with some exercise. Thousands of people walked 5 miles across the famous Mackinac Bridge. Now, this was the 64th annual Labor Day Bridge Walk. That bridge is closed to traffic for the walk. Organizers say it takes the whole year to plan logistically. In all, 26,000 people participated in this year's walk. How about that? Well, that's all for us on the late edition. Thank you for watching. I'm Kai Jackson. Here's Morgan Atson with Sports Unlimited. Morgan.
Thank you, Kai. The Orioles started Labor Day 2.5 back from the final wild card, and who has it? That would be Toronto. Big 4 games ahead with the Blue Jays this week. Full game movement available in the standings, and it all got started today with a doubleheader. Let's go to the most recent game, Game 2. Jordan Lyles, supposed to start Game 1, was sick. Couldn't go in Game 2 either after warming up, and they could have used them, but you never know with Bo Bichette, who belted out a career-high 3 home runs off the O's. He painted the outfield, one to left, one to right, and the final to center. Birds swept in the doubleheader 8-4 in Game 2. In Game 1, the return of Kevin Gausman on the mound with Toronto, and Anthony Santander took him deep to right for a plaque, 1-0 O's. Santander with 2 homers in the game. The Orange and Blackbirds were down 3-1. Then in the 6th, Ryan Mountcastle just misses tying it up. Settles for a double and bringing Adley Rutschman home. 3-2 ball game, but Toronto adds plenty of late insurance in the 8th and 9th. 3 runs off DL Hall. O's lost the first one 7-3, so they're now 4.5 back from the final AL wildcard. Week 1 has finally arrived on the practice field for the Ravens. We are 6 days away from a full slate of NFL games on Sunday, and one of those being the Ravens at the Jets. Today's practice marked a first in nearly a year. Left tackle Ronnie Stanley on the practice field in front of media eyes and cameras. Stanley has played in only 7 games in the past 2 seasons after multiple ankle surgeries. This is a huge step, but it's a step. His game day status is still very much up in the air for Sunday.
It just depends on how he's doing. You know, I mean, a lot of it has to do with how he's feeling, if he's ready to go, if he feels strong, he's moving, feels like he can be successful, and if we see what we need to see. Same thing with J.K., Marcus, or any of those guys.
Well, I think anytime you get your all-pro tackle back, you know, it's good. You know, it's good spirits to see him out there moving around. We had another level of experience, you know, another guy that can help the younger guys get acclimated because it's a different course now. You know, obviously we played through preseason training camp, and now it's the real thing now.
There are no gimmies in a long NFL season, not even for the Ravens Week 1 at the Jets. While there's odds and predictions, no one knows which team will hoist the Lombardi Trophy come mid-February, especially with this logjam of talented teams just in the AFC. But Ravens outside linebacker Justin Houston just made his pick known.
We're going to get that ring this year. I'm tired of hoping and wishing we're going to get it. I'm going to speak it to existence. That means everything. That's why we're here. That's why you work together as one team, as one goal. The common goal is to get that ring. That's why I'm here still playing, still chasing that ring. I haven't had the opportunity. I came close, but I think this year, by far, this will be my best year and our best year as a team to get that ring.
I like it, but let's focus on Week 1 and which quarterback the Ravens defense will face. Zach Wilson fresh off knee surgery or a reunion with Joe Flacco. Both are possibilities right now.
Eventually, he's got to get back in there. And whether it's this week, next week, the week after, it doesn't matter. So you just have to rip the Band-Aid off. When Zach's ready to play and he's healthy, like I've said from the beginning, when he's healthy and he feels good, he's going to go on the football. He's going to play football. We're going to see how the knee responds today and tomorrow, and we'll have an answer for everybody on Wednesday.
County native Francis Tiafoe with a career best win at the U.S. Open, and he saved it for Rafael Nadal. Tiafoe upset the 22 major champion Nadal to advance to the quarterfinals. That's all for Sports Unlimited tonight. I'm Morgan Atson. Thanks for watching and have a great night.